All right, welcome to my very first installment of our new Making Doll Foods Polymer Clay 101. Stay tuned and start learning the basics of working with polymer clay. All right, before we start looking at clay, let's talk a little bit about why I'm doing this video. This is going to be a series. You guys have been asking for pretty much a Clay 101 series ever since the very first clay food project came up on this channel. And where am I coming from? I've been doing dollhouse miniature foods for about, I don't know, somewhere between 25 and 30 years. Bought my first bar of clay probably 30 years ago. And I was hooked from the moment I touched that first piece of clay. I was really excited and I love doing this. I love sharing it with you guys. So hopefully I won't babble too much in this video. And I can teach you a little bit about the different brands of clay that are easy to find, a little bit about what to purchase, what not to purchase, and how to open it, which should be obvious, but it took me a couple of years to figure that little trick out, and a little bit about storing your clay today. Then next week we'll start talking about conditioning clay and different tools and things like that, and it's going to be one topic a week. I'm going to try and keep these short-ish and keep them one topic per video. So when you go to your craft store, you might see some of these different brands. And I didn't buy new clay for the video. I just went to my clay storage and grabbed random blocks. You can see I got out the box of green clay first. And just grabbed some bars of clay to show you what I have. So these are some of the brands that are easiest to find in your craft store. Fimo, this is from their Effects line. They also have other lines of clay. Be sure if it says Effects on it, you double check what the color name is, especially if you're making food. Because like this one is glitter green. You probably don't want to be making food out of glitter green, but it's a gorgeous color. The other clay that I use quite often is Original Sculpey. This is an almost 4-pound block, 3.75 pounds. And I've used up most of this box of clay in the last couple of years. I don't remember exactly when I got it. But this is also good for making doll food with, but it's only kind of an off-white. It says white. It's kind of a off-whitish color. You can see mine's almost empty. But it's very soft. So you're not going to get a lot of detail. But if you just need a lot of bulk, this is good. And sometimes I'll use this to make like a core, and I'll build around it with my good clay. And I've shown that on a few videos, and I'll show that trick again later in this series probably. So now this box cost me, I think the retail on this when I got it was around $30. But when you figure ounce by ounce, that's a lot cheaper than this stuff. So, and I knew I would use it. If you're not using that much clay, get a smaller box. Or just stick with the small blocks. But that's a good value if you're doing lots of stuff, lots of big stuff. Let's talk about these others. Fimo is the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to how firm the clay is, how hard it is out of the package. You have to do a lot more what's called conditioning with Fimo. As you can see here, my house is cold right now. In the summer it's a little easier, but I'm pushing really hard and I'm not making much of a dent on that. That's because that's a firmer clay. These three are softer. They're kind of in between the Original Sculpey and the Fimo. Primo by Sculpey is a little better quality, and it's a little softer than the Fimo. You can see I can squish it. When I say condition, I mean squish it until it's soft, and we'll go into conditioning and ways to do that in a few weeks. Sculpey 3 is much softer. And the souffle product is quite soft. It's not as soft as the Sculpey 3, but it's fairly soft. Depending on what you're doing, which brand is best for you. And these, all of these, can be mixed. I mix them all the time. Even though they have different baking temperatures, typically female calls for about a 235 degree baking temperature. And all that information is always on your block of clay. Look on your block of clay for the directions. It'll tell you what temperature. Here it says 230 on this one. These usually have it up on the label with the color. If I'm mixing these with female, I just bake it at the lower temperature. It's fine. It'll get cured. And curing means to make it hard. This can sit on the shelf for years. As long as you store it properly, it will stay on the shelf and still be good. You might need to condition it more. You might need to add some clay conditioner to it. But you can still use it years later, as long as you haven't baked it. That's what cures it. That's what makes it hard. After it's baked, you can't change it, but you can add to it. There's also other brands. There's store brands. Some stores have their own private labeling. I believe Sculpey makes a product, I want to say called Bake Shop, that I've seen at Walmart. I've picked up a block, but I don't know where I put it, and I've never tried it. I believe it's a lot softer. You can combine colors to mix. There's already hundreds of colors of polymer clay out there. You can mix the colors to get whatever color you want. You've seen me do that on my videos. And we're going to talk more about specific things like that later. Today we're going to talk about a few other things here. Let's see. I want to talk about storage. Because raw polymer clay in this state, reacts with some plastics. It will literally melt some plastics. So be very careful how you store it. Luckily for us, Ziploc type sandwich bags are clay friendly. I have been storing my clay in Ziploc sandwich bags ever since that very first piece of clay. And also, like the plastic shoebox type boxes you get at the dollar store or at the hardware, wherever, they also, the clay doesn't eat those, but some other plastics it will, so you do need to be careful. I usually buy cheap sandwich bags or sandwich bags on sale, and I give each color of clay a different bag. And this one you can see I've mixed, this one has gotten against that one. Somehow I got that mixed. I'll have to cut that off if I want to use that color. Oh, before I put these all away, I wanted to point out, when I open my clay, I look for where the color name is. On female, it's always on the back, on the bottom. So I slit the top with a knife. On the Sculpey products, the color information is almost always on the top, so I open from the bottom. You want to keep this information as to what the color is, because a lot of times when you see directions for making polymer clay projects, there will be colors, specific colors suggested, and it's nice to know what you've got. When I get low on a color, I'll buy another block and just put it right in with it. The bags last for years. I bake this in my home oven. I don't have a special oven for it. I'm not worried about it. I know people that have clay dedicated toaster ovens, and if you're worried, that's a good way to go. Just be careful because they don't always control the temperature very well. The thing you have to be careful with polymer clay is it can be heated for a long time. It can be baked for a long time, but it can't be baked at a very high temperature. Don't go over that suggested temperature. Keep it at that temperature or lower. And that being said, there's another brand of clay that's out there. I know I've seen it on my few visits to Hobby Lobby, and that's Caly clay. Caly clay is a whole different animal. It bakes at a higher temperature, and it's designed for someone that's more of a polymer clay, has a lot more polymer clay experience than what I'm talking about in this video. Stick with these softer clays for our foods. you'll be much happier with your results. The other thing I want to talk about today is that you want to, if you've used something from your kitchen, say a cookie cutter, with your polymer clay, you really shouldn't use it with food again. It's now become a clay tool. So keep that in mind when you're using your clay. You need to have separate tools dedicated to just your clay. It's really important that you don't ingest this stuff. It's non-toxic, but all the clay manufacturers warn you, don't reuse your stuff for food again. So that's the basics on buying and storing clay and opening it. And other videos, depending on what you guys are interested in, we'll go into other parts, tools, what I mean by different terms, all different kinds of things. So I hope you enjoyed this. Be sure and check the blog post. I'll have pictures and I'll hopefully have more information there. If you have questions, just be sure to ask because I'm always happy to answer them. If you haven't found the Facebook page, I really would love to see you come over there and join us because that's usually the quickest way to talk to me. And I will talk to you later. Bye.